Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, right here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. We've got a great show in store for you this week. We'll be joined by Lee Williams High School Athletic Director Shane Murray, who will discuss his journey from Oklahoma to Arizona. We'll then be joined by Flagstaff High School Athletic Director Jeannine Brandel, who will discuss her career path and some of the changes we can expect this winter season. But on the other side of this break, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain High School Athletic Director Clarinda Weatherwax, who will discuss her career stops before landing the job at Bradshaw. All of that and a whole lot more right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by Athletic Director for Bradshaw Mountain High School, Clarinda Weatherwax. Miss Weatherwax, welcome onto the show.
Thanks for having me.
I apologize for butchering your name almost immediately into the interview, but it is quite unique and a very interesting name.
It is. It's very hard, so I don't hold anything against anyone that can't get it right off the bat.
Okay, good, because my last name, as everyone knows, is an absolute nightmare to pronounce. So I know how you feel.
Yeah.
For those of you who do not know, again, as I said, Miss Weatherwax is the athletic director over at Bradshaw Mountain High School. She is originally from Nebraska, and throughout her career, you made stops almost everywhere. It feels like almost everywhere. Ohio, Wyoming, Kansas. Like I said, you're from Nebraska. What brought you here to Arizona?
Well, what's interesting is that I actually went to a year at UNL, which is the Husker Nation. I'm still a Cornhusker fan, but it felt like high school. And my sister actually was at Arizona State. And for spring break, I actually went out and visited her. And so I fell in love with ASU. And I ended up getting my first degree there at ASU. So I am a Sun Devil. Okay. And so I fell in love there, graduated. And then was looking for something more. And that's how I got to Ohio and got into teaching and working with kids and athletes. And one thing that also started in Arizona was my love for coaching. At the age of 19, when I first moved out here, I actually started at North High School down in Phoenix, coaching girls basketball. And so that's where my passion developed. And I've been coaching ever since until I became an administrator. But went to Ohio, did some time there as a teacher and coaching. And then went to Wyoming to be closer to family. Loved it. But if anybody's been in Wyoming, they know the wind and they know the whiteouts, and it's not fun.
So a Sun Devil on paper, but a Cornhusker at heart is Miss Weatherwax.
That is so true. That is so true.
As I mentioned, you've traveled everywhere, it seems like. Is there anything from your time in those non-Arizona states that you've been able to take with you throughout your career as an athletic director?
Oh, yeah. My whole coaching career is basically how I've learned to work with coaches, athletes. I think it's essential if you're an athletic director, you at least have dabbled in the coaching world. So you understand all the personalities you deal with, parents, the community, just being involved. And so you take all those experiences and accumulate it into being an athletic director.
So would you say it's actually kind of important that maybe an athletic director looks into coaching before they become an AD?
Oh, definitely. I almost think that should be a requirement, just because as an athletic director, you are speaking on the behalf of your coaches and trying to help them in every possible way. And as long as you have that understanding of what they're trying to do for their program, it helps you tremendously.
Okay. Like you just said, you've been a teacher, you've been a coach, you've been in the administration. Now you're an athletic director. Did you always kind of see yourself transitioning from that coach role or teacher role to something higher up in the administration department?
I didn't. I first got my regular admin degree at Chadron State through an online program, just because I taught social studies. And unfortunately in Wyoming, social studies wasn't on the high priority of making sure you had PD time. Mm-hmm. And so in order to get my license to renew, I had to pick something. And I had a wonderful instructor at Xavier University who always basically said, you are going to have to get continuing education units for the rest of your life in education. He's like, you might as well get it towards something. Right. And I took that to heart. And so I went and got my admin degree, and it took 5 years before I even thought about being an administrator. And what really got me to be an athletic director was I went through Ohio University and got an athletic admin. And that was the first time where I thought, you know what, maybe there is something besides coaching, because I really truly thought I'd be coaching for the rest of my career.
It seems like you got a lot of degrees and certificates and a lot of Power 5 conferences. You've got your degree at ASU, which is Pac-12, and you go over to Nebraska, and you've got a certificate from Ohio State, who just competed in the national championship. So a lot of a high degree when choosing a school for Miss Weatherwax. It's either you've been to a national championship or you're on the verge of one. I like it. 2019. Miss Weatherwax takes over as the athletic director at Bradshaw Mountain High School. What kind of attracted you to that job of athletic director when you could have stayed a coach or stayed a teacher?
I think I started looking at how can I help more people than just my program and the athletes I work with. Being able to work with so many different programs. Being a teacher, you also get to help different programs, like run the events, work at the table. And I did a lot of that. And I actually enjoy doing that and seeing other sports thrive and just how they worked. And that's kind of where I went, was like, you know what, I think it would be fun to be able to help the whole school instead of just my one program that I would work with.
Again, we are speaking with athletic director for Bradshaw Mountain High School, Clarinda Weatherwax. Ms. Weatherwax, are there any clubs or programs that you'd like to see added to Bradshaw Mountain High School now that you're in more of an authoritative role?
Well, what's interesting is at the beginning of the year, and we're still working on it, is I actually had a student come to me and want to start boys volleyball. And I was pretty intrigued because back in my day, that wasn't an option. And so I'm gauging interest and trying to work on it and figuring out how we can get it to work with our budget. And hopefully in the next year or two, we're actually going to be adding boys volleyball.
Fantastic. Hopefully we'll see some more boys volleyball programs pop up in the 4A Grand Canyon region. I know. Heat in the 4A Grand Canyon region, but we have seen some of the more niche sports pop up. Prescott has a badminton team, for example. Yep. Again, they don't compete in the 4A Grand Canyon, but still one of those sports that, as you mentioned, while you were in high school, boys volleyball was not an option. It was also not an option when I went to high school. So it'd be really cool to see more of those programs pop up. So let's transition a little bit here. As we all know, the winter season has been reinstated. It was initially not going to happen, and then a vote flipped it, of course. And you can see Ms. Weatherwax's excitement about it. We were all excited the winter season is going to get kicked off. In the fall, no fans at Bradshaw. Is that going to be the same thing for the winter?
We are going to start off with no fans just because of the numbers that we do have up here in Yavapai County. I really want to make sure that we ensure the season starts and finishes. And so that means kind of having some strict protocol to start us off with. And then hopefully if those numbers decline, we can start offering like the 2 per athlete so that they can have some fans in the stands.
And for those of you who do want to, I know the football games were broadcasted on KKLD. I'm not sure if there is an outlet for the winter sports season, because I know Matt Showalter is usually the guy on the call for the football games. But Hopefully Matt can transition into to basketball at some point, but
I'll have to work on him.
Yeah, maybe I'd love to hear Matt Showalter call some basketball for sure. A friend of the show and a friend of Yavapai Broadcasting is Matt Showalter. Early on this year, or excuse me, last year, before the spring season even kicked off, or excuse me, before the fall season even kicked off, the unfortunate passing of longtime Bradshaw coach Chuck Muller. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Coach Muller. I know he was a part of the hiring process when you were looking to become the athletic director. Like I mentioned, he does unfortunately pass away last year. Just, like I said, just give us your thoughts on Coach Muller, what he meant to you, what he's meant to this community, and, just whatever else you have to say.
Yeah, he was, unfortunately, I only got to know him for the 1 year. Wish it could have been longer. He was a great guy, very communicative. He would always come into my office and tell me what was going on or what he needed me to fix, or just had good conversations with him. And so he's truly missed amongst the staff. And I know his football players really, truly missed him. He was always a go-getter, just a truly good, he was meant to be a football coach. That's the best way to put it. He loved football, and that's truly was his love and passion.
What's really weird is you sort of replace Chuck Muller with another Chuck Muller. And I know that the physical, impact of Chuck Muller cannot be matched, but in terms of football knowledge and longevity, you replace Chuck Muller with Bob Young, the longtime Mingus Union High School football coach. And I mean, it's like replacing Vince Lombardi with Bill Belichick. You go from one high caliber coach to another high caliber coach. I did get a chance to speak with Matt Showalter about the hiring of Bob Young, but he's only one part of that hiring. And I was curious, what about Coach Young attracted you guys to trying to bring him over to a rival school in Bradshaw Mountain?
I'm going to say we got lucky. Bob Young is definitely a gem amongst the football community, and just having him on staff, I can tell this year there's been this great change. And I think that's what the boys needed after such an unexpected event of Coach Muller passing away. And so he's kind of soft-spoken, but don't mistake that soft-spokenness for like you're going to get away with anything. He sees it. He knows where you're coming from. He's going to stop you right off at the pass if you're going to try something sneaky with him. But I love his relationship that he has with those boys. And he holds them to a high standard. And that's what those boys needed after that past year. So we truly got lucky in having Coach Young on our staff.
One of the first people I was informed about was Coach Young, because when I took over last year, the year before in 2019 for the Mingus Marauders on their broadcast side, that was the year after Coach Young, or actually it was 2 years, a year after Coach Young had left. And it was kind of just this, I kept hearing about Coach Young and hearing about this mysterious Coach Young and how impactful he was to the community. And you're right, I did get a chance to speak with him. You guys can go check that out early on in the show's origins. We did get a chance to sit down with Coach Young and speak with him. And you're right, he does have such a calm demeanor to himself, but the guy really knows what he's talking about. And he is an incredible football coach and an even better person. Yes, definitely. Totally agree with you 100% on him. And it's kind of weird. It's got to be weird for him. And I know that we've talked about it before, but him just, when we had that game, Bradshaw versus Mingus, when Coach Young made his return to the cave, it was kind of weird, even though I hadn't been a part of the program for long enough. Speaking to guys who had been a part of the program in Coach Eric Casada and my color commentator, Nick Yatsenko, I had asked him, I was like, is it weird to see Coach Young on the other side? And they're like, it is, but it's even weirder seeing that BMHS on his chest instead of the usual MUHS. But a great fit for Bradshaw. And I know that Coach Young is going to do some incredible things with that program and the youth program as well over in Prescott Valley. So in terms of school, I know that kind of been up and down with the school year as opposed to the sports season, which has either been on or off. The school year has kind of been bouncing back and forth to in-person, out of person, in-person, out of person. How has that transition been for you as an educator? And what can students expect going forward in this I guess I should say the second half of the school year? Well, right now we are still at home. We went back to online learning right before the Christmas break, about 2 weeks before. But the plan is Tuesday we are having kids come back in hybrid. And to me, it's
it's somewhat normal. I miss the kids on campus. I miss that camaraderie you see between passing bells and just the excitement of being there and then heading off to practice. And so getting back to that, I think, is very essential, and our kids need to be on campus. And hopefully, I still have hope that we will have all kids back on campus before the end of the year. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and I think that is a very big hope and consensus around the entire community here in Northern Arizona, and probably throughout the entire state, is that, obviously there are some worries with the winter season regarding, the COVID, transmitting COVID-19. And we know that when we go to the spring, it'll be more outdoor sports, which will be a little bit easier. Not to say that there still isn't that threat, but regardless, I agree. Hopefully we will be able to see more students in actual class as we continue throughout the rest of the school year and go into that winter season. But again, we are speaking with Bradshaw Mountain High School Athletic Director Clarinda Weatherwax. Ms. Weatherwax, winter season, as I mentioned, is finally a go. That means basketball. That means wrestling. That means other sports that I forgot to write down. Soccer is one of them.
Soccer.
I know that not only are you itching and scratching to watch these kids compete, but the rivalry against Prescott gets to continue. I did get a chance to speak with your counterpart, Missy Townsend, on the other side of the street there with Prescott High School about what her thoughts on the rivalry were. I'm going to pass the same question off to you. When you get a chance to see your kids compete against Prescott, is it a little bit nicer when they beat them than to say they beat some of the other 4A Grand Canyon schools?
Oh, definitely. Even though Missy and I are really good friends, during those games, we can still stand by each other and talk cordially. But, deep down, I'm really rooting for Bradshaw to beat Prescott. And I love that kind of rivalry, because that's when you get to see the kids truly at their best, because they know they want that win so badly. So they all work really hard to really make that a goal.
I want to leave you with one more question before we take off. As you mentioned, and for those of you who are listening on radio, behind Miss Weatherwax is a Nebraska Cornhuskers calendar where you switch the clocks out and they can spell out the date. So let me ask you, what's better, a Nebraska win over Iowa or a Bradshaw win over Prescott?
Oh, that's so hard. You can't put me in that position.
I'm backing you in the corner before we send it off the break.
I know. I'm going to have to go with a Bradshaw win over Prescott.
All right. Okay. Very much so. So again, we are excited and ready to go for the winter season. As Ms. Weatherwax said, there will be no fans in the stands for now at Bradshaw Mountain High School games due to the unfortunate spread of COVID-19. But hopefully for the spring season that will change, and maybe even throughout the winter season that will change. But for right now, no fans in the stands at Bradshaw Mountain High School. Ms. Weatherwax, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to it.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Lee Williams High School Athletic Director Shane Murray on the other side of this break. Off the Bench, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by Lee Williams High School Athletic Director Shane Murray. Mr. Murray, welcome on to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, we are very happy to have you. We love talking to our friends in the Mojave County, Lee Williams High School, and of course Mojave. We've not gotten a chance to talk to too many of the representatives out there, but we love speaking with you guys. As we know, Lee Williams is a part of the 4A Grand Canyon region. Same thing with Mojave, and we're happy to have you on and give us a little bit of an update of what's going on around in Kingman and Mojave County. For those of you who do not know, and for those of you who are listening on radio, Mr. Murray is from Oklahoma. Behind him is a very large Oklahoma Sooners banner. He is a big Oklahoma fan. So being from Oklahoma, as we all know, that is not Arizona. What brought you here to the desert?
Well, strangely enough, I actually started my teaching career in Parker, Arizona.
Okay.
My first year teaching ever. It was a little harder to get jobs in Oklahoma at the time. So I saw the opening and I came out, and it was pretty much the same thing when I wanted to get into administration. I saw there was an opening in Kingman, and I always had Kingman in the back of my mind as a possible destination because it's not valley hot. You know, I've been through here. It's not bad, and it's got access to mountains. It's got access to Vegas. So they had an opening for administration at Kingman High School, and I jumped on it.
Okay. Any specific reason as to why you took over the athletic director position in 2018? As you mentioned, sort of the area attracted you a little bit to the position, but you could have easily just stuck as a biology teacher or even gone into literally anything else. But what about the athletic director position to you made it important to you to apply for it when you could have probably just stayed where you were?
Well, I enjoyed being a teacher. I love working with the kids, but I had always wanted to be an athletic director, and I coached a little bit as a teacher. I knew I wanted to move up into administration eventually. And while I was at Kingman High School, I was just doing discipline and things like that. And this job came open. I thought surely I wouldn't qualify, but I got an interview, and here I am.
Yes, here you are, very much so. Only a few years later, and you are the athletic director over at Lee Williams High School in Kingman, Arizona. When you first started that position, transitioning from that teacher role to the athletic director, what challenges did you face early on?
All of it. There's so much to learn to do the job right, and I'm just scratching the surface now as well. So much of it has to do with trying to have good communication with all stakeholders, coaches, parents, athletes. And I'm not sure that ever gets mastered, but that's kind of my goal.
Is there anything that you would tell yourself, is there anything that you would tell your 2018 self that you know now to sort of prepare you a little bit easier to when you started your career?
I think it would be to prepare a whole lot of documents and get things ready, tasking lists, all those sorts of things that make it easier to be an AD. Just not having to learn all that stuff fresh on my own, which I had some great peer help. The athletic director at Kingman High School, John Benegay, he's been a great resource.
Are there any sort of misconceptions about being an athletic director that you feel you'd want to clear up for anybody who may be interested in that position?
Well, it's a delicate balance of trying to make everyone happy and to make informed decisions that are going to not only be the best for our school and our athletes, but you're just not going to make everyone happy. There's just no way. You just got to do what's right for the school and your kids and be able to live with it.
Yeah. How do you kind of I find myself a lot trying to be a people pleaser, sort of like that's kind of been my MO for some reason. Maybe it's because I'm from California. I have no idea. But how have you been able to sort of find that balance to go, God, I really, really want to give these people this thing, but I know that we just can't do it. How have you been able to sort of walk that middle of the road?
We just got to be upfront with them and have those conversations. And sometimes those conversations are tough, but those are what you got to do. You got to have good relationships with the community and the parents and the athletes, and they'll understand that sometimes the decisions they're not going to agree with, but they know that they are in the back of my mind when I make those decisions.
Of course. Again, we were speaking with Lee Williams High School Athletic Director Shane Murray. Mr. Murray, you, in addition to being the athletic director, for those of you who don't know, he is also the Dean of Students. How have you been able to balance the two? It seems like I'm not entirely sure what the Dean of Students is, so you might have to clear that up a little bit for me, but how have you been able to sort of balance the two, being the athletic director and the Dean of Students?
Well, it's really just kind of the discipline component that all administrators have to do. It's more time consuming than anything. You could have days where you can completely concentrate on athletics, and then you'll have days where discipline takes over your day job. We like to call it the day job, whereas the athletic director oftentimes, as you would know, probably runs well into the night. So do what you can.
Yes, very much so. And you do a great job over at Lee Williams. We got an opportunity not only last year, but of course this year to travel down to Kingman and broadcast the Mingus Lee Williams game. Always very, very fun, those Lee Williams games. Football team, very high-powered offense. You want to talk about Oklahoma. Your quarterback reminds me a lot of Kyler Murray, who was a longtime quarterback for Oklahoma.
No, he does a good job for us, and he's still finding his way as well. It's been a difficult transition for us. We haven't been 4A, but since maybe, 2015. And it was difficult at first trying to compete with 4A teams, because we're just barely 4A. I think we're around 1,100 students. So it's been tough, but our programs overall they're making that climb, and we're able to compete not only for region titles, but also get kids in the state.
I will never forget this past football season. We had 2 chase down tackles from Kingman. Now it was, I'm going to blank out on the names, but there were 2 instances where the Marauders looked like they were going to march down the field on either a kick return or I believe it was a deep pass for touchdowns. And both times, one of the Lee Williams Volunteers was the same guy twice. And I do apologize for not remembering his name, but 2 times he chased him down the field and brought him down. Like I said, it's very exciting football up in Lee Williams. And we got to see it in full force this past year.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember specifically, but I know that's been kind of our MO all year, is to try to hustle, and we get a lot of those hustle plays. We pretty much have to if we want to be able to compete, because it's a tough region.
Speaking of which, as we all know, the winter sports season was reinstated. I spoke with Clarinda Weatherwax, the athletic director for Bradshaw Mountain. I will be speaking on the other side of this break. We'll speak with Janine Brandel of Flagstaff High School. Winter season is back in. A couple schools, specifically Bradshaw, is not going to be having fans in the stands. Is there an official call right now on what we can expect at Lee Williams? Will there be fans in the stands? Will there not be? Where are we at right now?
Well, we're looking at right now no visiting fans, but we're going to allow what the AIA has given us the freedom to do, is the 2 parent or guardian fans per Lee Williams athletes.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. We are seeing no fans at Bradshaw, but yes, at Lee Williams, there will be home fans with the 2 fan per athlete minimum. Mm-hmm. No visiting fans at Lee Williams High School. Thank you very much for clearing that up. Currently, I know you're looking for a girls and boys tennis coach. You're also looking for a boys golf coach. Anybody who might be interested in those positions, where should they go to apply for those jobs?
They can go to Kingman Unified School District's website. They can click on the link there, and I'm always checking it to see if we can get some good candidates in here.
What do you look for in a candidate? Is there anything specifically in experience or possibly something on the resume? When you go to hire a new coach, what are you specifically looking at?
Well, a couple of things, really. Mainly, we're looking for someone who can form good relationships with our kids. It's great if they've got some good experience and can teach our kids and make them better and coach them up. The relationships are huge. It's a huge deal for our school. We pride ourselves in building good characters for our kids, and that's kind of what we expect from our faculty. It's what we expect from our coaches.
talking more about the sports side of it, we know that the in-conference rival for Lee Williams is Mojave High School. Are they the official rival for Lee Williams? Because I know there's also Kingman there. Lake Havasu is there. You've also got River Valley. Is Mojave kind of the official rival for Lee Williams High School?
It kind of depends on the sport.
Okay.
We've got great relationships between the coaches and administration of all of those schools.
Right.
So the rivalries, they tend to lie within the community and not so much with the people who run the schools. But you'd probably get 10 different answers if you asked 10 different coaches.
Well, what about for you? What about you in general? What does that rivalry between Mojave mean for you? Because you see it at a different angle. You're not technically down on the field for the football field. You're not down on the field coaching the team. You are the athletic director. To you, what is that rivalry like?
No, it seems pretty civil to me. I haven't noticed too many problems. I think parents from both sides probably take it pretty seriously, and maybe some of that is the fact that I haven't been in Kingman all my life, so maybe there's more to it than I know. But since I've been here, it's civil.
Okay. Yes, we like a good civil rivalry, of course. Let me ask you this. I asked Clarinda the same question, so I'll ask you this. What is better to you, a OU win over OSU or a Lee Williams win over Mojave?
Oh, so at OU, we expect to beat OSU. So I would say a Kingman win over anyone, whether it's Mojave or anyone else.
Okay, that's funny.
For sure. Yeah. Any Lee Williams win is a good win.
Of course. A very similar answer to what Miss Weatherwax gave me as well. Very hard when you got to go to those. But I love college football. Of course, I guess I'm kind of a Texas University fan because I was a big Vince Young fan growing up, and I guess their rivalry obviously would be. I don't even know, to be honest. I want to say USC, but it has been their rival since like 2005. Shows how much I watch college football. But it's interesting how those rivalries in state never really leave you. You see the big banner behind Mr. Murray. For those of you, again, who are listening on radio, there's a big OU banner behind him. There's a lot of pride with not only his ties to Oklahoma, but his ties to Oklahoma University. Miss Weatherwax, the same thing. She graduated from ASU. She's from Nebraska, loves the Cornhuskers. It's kind of interesting how you carry those traditions with you, even if you're not even in that state.
Oh, for sure. And I think a big thing with states like Nebraska and Oklahoma is that we didn't have a whole lot of access to professional sports. So that main university, and I can remember as a kid growing up, OU versus Nebraska on Thanksgiving Day was just it. That was going to decide the conference. So yeah, that never really leaves you. The big saying is that you were sooner born, sooner bred, and when you die, you'll be sooner dead. So that's the way it is.
Again, we were speaking with Lee Williams High School Athletic Director Shane Murray. Mr. Murray, I'm going to ask you one more question before we wrap things up. What can we expect from Lee Williams this winter season? We're kicking off basketball. We're kicking off soccer. We're kicking off wrestling. What can we expect from the kids competing out there?
We're going to play hard. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that everyone stays safe. And we're going to try to compete for some region titles.
All right, I take that back. I got one more. As we know, a couple of schools in the district, a couple of schools in the region are going hybrid. They're going in person. What can students at Lee Williams expect for the rest of this school year?
Well, the board just voted last night to go back to a hybrid schedule next week. So I would imagine we're all looking for a little bit of consistency, and hopefully we can stay hybrid for a little bit, because it's the change that really makes it difficult on the students. Obviously, we all want to side on safety and making sure everyone can safely attend. We're going to take everything with caution, and as the numbers get better, we'll look to gradually increase everything, I would imagine.
Mr. Murray, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. I look forward to speaking with you and the rest of your staff as we continue on the rest of this winter into the spring season. You guys are doing some great things over at Lee Williams, and whatever we can do to spotlight that, I would be happy to do for you. And again, I want to thank you very much for coming on. It was great speaking with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Flagstaff High School Athletic Director Jeannine Brandel on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I am joined now by Flagstaff High School's Athletic Director, Jeannine Brandel. Ms. Brandel, welcome onto the program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we are very happy to have you on our Athletic Director special show. We spoke earlier today with Clarinda Weatherwax of Bradshaw High School. We also spoke with Shane Murray of Lee Williams. And now we wrap it up with Flagstaff High School's Athletic Director, Jeannine Brandel. For those of you who don't know, Ms. Brandel has served in many different capacities throughout her career, graduating from NAU. Why did you choose a career in education?
You know, I think it was more or less just a natural kind of falling into. I value education. I greatly enjoy kids, and it was a very natural mesh of those two passions.
You are not originally from Arizona, but you decided to stick around in the Northern Arizona area, like I mentioned, graduating from Northern Arizona University, and now the big hot head honcho over at Flagstaff High School. Why stick around in that area?
Well, it has a lot to do with my husband. I was born and raised in Idaho, loved Idaho, didn't figure I would ever leave it. And then my husband did his master's degree at Colorado State University, and I assumed when that was done, we'd go home, but didn't seem to be in the cards. We moved to NAU. He originally was in the residence life area. He promised me this was a 2-year commitment. So this has been the longest 2 years of my life. He had a great career. He is now retired, but prior to his retirement, he was the dean of students for a number of years at NAU.
When speaking with Ms. Weatherwax and Mr. Murray, they both kind of talked about their paths, their past. Ms. Weatherwax is a big Nebraska Cornhuskers fan. Mr. Murray is a big Oklahoma fan, both of them being from Nebraska and Oklahoma, respectively. You being from Idaho, You have a little bit of a history with Boise State. You played there. You were I believe it was field hockey you played over at Boise State. You still have a little bit of love for the Broncos over there?
No, we have tons of love for the Broncos.
All right, there you go.
we are diehard Boise State Broncos fans. We predated the blue turf. It was green turf when we went to school there. And my husband's a graduate of Boise State. So our heart is at Boise.
Very much so. It's very interesting to see that love and passion for the local college team, especially in states like Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Idaho, who don't have professional sports teams, I guess, outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder for the NBA. But it's interesting how that stays with you. In California, I'm from California, there's many teams in that area, so it's kind of just like a hodgepodge. You either like USC or you like UCLA, or, it's not as strict or as straightforward as some of the other states. You take over as the athletic director in 2010. What challenges did you face early on in your career?
And actually, I became the athletic director in November of 2007.
Oh, okay,
so
great.
A little bit sooner than that.
Great.
some challenges we were facing is we immediately were looking for a football coach here. That's always an interesting time. In fact, that's partly why I got a little distracted today. We're currently in the process of looking for a football coach.
Okay.
So that was probably my biggest challenge when I came on board back in 2007.
Very interesting. I did not know that Flagstaff was looking for a new football coach. We'll touch upon that when we get to the fall season. So we'll leave it as is. And we're excited to hear about who you end up hiring, but we'll wait till that announcement comes from your office. Do you have any advice for any upcoming educators that you've learned throughout the years?
Probably to be flexible. Okay. That's probably the biggest thing that we've had to deal with this year. Is we think we're heading one direction and then all of a sudden it stops and we turn around and go a completely different way. So flexibility and just to continue that passion for our youth and for the kids that we serve.
How have you seen the school grow since you took over in 2007?
We've grown in a lot of ways. We were always a very strong school, and my 4 kids all went to Flag High and graduated from Flag High. They got tremendous educations. They all did very well, went on to very good institutions of higher education. So I feel like Flag High is a very comprehensive, a very solid high school. As far as changes, I've had the good fortune to work with Tony Cullen all my years here. And Tony originally was a student at Flag High, a standout football and ice hockey player, as well as I think he played baseball and I'm not sure what else, but Tony's got great vision and great passion for this community. And we are always working and looking at innovative ways to serve our students. I mean, one of the things that I'm proudest of, and we were looking at these numbers yesterday, is our graduation rate. Okay. We have a tremendous graduation rate. I think last year, 2019, 2020, and that, grading that they do at the state, it was 94%. I mean, that's crazy good. And even more important is the Native American students. And we serve a significant number of those, not only that live in our community, but also students who live in the Kinlani dorm. Our graduation rate for Native American students is over 96%. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. It's a very, very high Native American population in northern Arizona, for those of you who don't know, not too far away from the Navajo Nation up in Pate here in Flagstaff. But you talk about former players. There is such a consistent record of former Flagstaff players going to becoming coaches for the programs they played at. Specifically, Coach Nick Walton for the boys basketball program, Tyrone Johnson for the girls basketball program. Even you thought you were just going to be in northern Arizona for 2 years. You ended up staying for so long. What is it about that area that attracts former players back home to Flagstaff?
It's a great community to be in. I mean, it's a good place. The community cares about each other. We have a lot of great initiatives and very diverse people. I mean, we have just about every kind of interest that you could imagine. And, people like both Tyrone and Nick, I think they're just people who this is their home. Yeah. And when they graduated college, they had no intention of leaving. In the case of Tyrone, he even went to college at NAU, played basketball there. So for him, this is where his heart is. And I think the same is true of Nick. I always laugh. I'm going to let on to my age probably, but I knew Nick when he was a student at Seacrest Elementary.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's just been a long time and a long relationship. But those people, they just have passion. They love the school. They love what they do. And I think they love kids.
Again, we are speaking with Flagstaff High School Athletic Director Jeannine Brandel. Ms. Brandel is a part of the AIA decision board, the governing board over there, a part of a few other representatives here in not only in the Coconino County, but the Yavapai County area as well. Kind of interesting what's happened this past week. Last week, we said there were going to be no sports. The board voted 5-4 in favor of canceling the winter sports season. You come back earlier this week to a sort of surprise session to talk about the winter sports season. Of course, I'll spoil it for you. You end up voting 5-4 in favor of the winter sports season. When you logged into that Zoom meeting, did you expect the call to be reversed?
To be honest, yes, I did. I was aware that there had been a lot of different discussions, and one of our board members had indicated that he was thinking that it should be a school decision, and that was the main reason that he was thinking about voting in the other way. So I suspected it would be.
Yeah, and of course, we are all very excited that the winter season is finally going to get kicked off. It's great. These seniors don't get to lose their season. They get to keep going. Unfortunately, we did have to lose the spring season last year, but hopefully we'll have a successful winter season, which will translate into a very successful spring season. There are going to be no fans at Bradshaw High School. There will be fans at Kingman, as we spoke with Mr. Murray and Mrs. Weatherwax, respectively. Flagstaff, what's the ruling right now regarding fans in the stands?
And, I think the only fans in the stands, if I can clarify, what the board voted on yesterday was to allow 2 parents per player. It's not like 2 people can come for every student. It's more 2 parents or guardians. Okay. At this time, the Flagstaff Unified School District, which includes both us and Coconino High School, we will not have fans or spectators, parents otherwise, in our venues.
Okay. Another ruling, and maybe something you can clarify a little bit for me. AIA Executive Director David Hines said if a team does not adhere by the modifications, there is a form that teams have to fill out beforehand to make sure that everybody is cleared and ready to go, on top of other modifications that were put in place. But what Mr. Hines said is if a team does not adhere by those modifications, refs will be pulled. Now, does that mean that they'll be pulled during the game, or will they be pulled for the rest of the season?
So a couple of things, and part of how this even came up is during the fall season of sport, there were some modifications, and the SMAC committee, which is the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, they did a survey, and what they found out is there was about 20 schools who admitted, obviously it's an anonymous survey, but they said, we didn't follow the guidelines, we didn't do the modifications. And I think for us, that's kind of disappointing from the standpoint of we're working very hard to make sure these young men and women have a season. And for people to not follow the modifications and the mitigation plans is disappointing. And, I dealt with some of those people. We'd have them come to our games and they would be like, but we don't do this where we're from. And we'd be like, well, get it, but you're now here in Flagstaff and this is what our expectation is. So we wanted to make sure that all schools understand that these are important things. We're not just doing it to try to be a pain. We want to do it so that we continue to play and that these young people get the opportunities they deserve. So in reference to your specific question, there'll be a new form that we will fill out. And actually, it really isn't new. Most of us are already using it. In our case, we adapted it to a kind of a Google Doc, kind of a survey. So ours is already in place. But we have temperatures taken. They answer the questions. Have you been exposed to COVID? Do you have any of the COVID symptoms? And we are going to have that printed out and it will be exchanged at the start of every game. So if I go to a game and I don't have that form, then the game won't happen. As far as pulling officials, I think it will be more in the case it won't be done during the actual game, though I suppose it could be if there's some blatant misbehavior. But it's more if teams aren't following the mask guideline and aren't doing those sort of things, future games will not have officials assigned to them.
Right.
So we're just trying to encourage people to make sure they're doing the right thing.
And that really is kind of the big important takeaway here is that, we got the winter season back. Whether you want to say it was the petition, whether you want to say it was a recalled vote, whatever you want to say, we got winter sports back, which is great. But this is where we're at now. It is wearing masks in the stands. It is, wearing masks now on the court or out on the soccer field or on the sidelines. These are the things we have to do to make sure that these kids get the rest of this sports season. It is imperative that if you're a visitor in the stands, if your stands are maybe a little bit more laxed for some reason and you're not used to wearing a mask in the stands, don't go. Or if you're in a different school that is wearing masks and you're a visiting fan, wear a mask. It takes everybody right now to come together and make sure that not only does this winter season continue, but it finishes so that we can go into the spring season being confident that we're going to go more to outdoors and being more ready to go for the spring season. But it's really going to take a collective effort from everybody, not only on the side of the administration, not only on the side of media like myself or the referees or AIA officials or the coaches or yourself, Miss Brandel. It's literally everybody has to come together and make sure that this season goes forward.
Absolutely. And, it's become a very political issue, and we just need to set that aside. And regardless of what your belief is, you just need to, at this point in time, do what's being asked.
Right. Very much so. Like I mentioned, Ms. Brandel, we are getting back to winter sports season. I do want to go back real quick to Coach Johnson. He did receive the Spirit of Cotton Award. Just kind of tell me what has his impact been on the school and the community since he took over a little while ago?
Coach Johnson is just an amazing, amazing coach. He leads pretty much just by example. He tells his students, you're going to get good grades. And if you don't, for each F or for each D, actually, if you have a D in a class, you don't get to start one quarter. Yeah. And he holds kids to that and gets great results. He's just a solid guy who cares deeply about athletes and students and is, I think, there for him 100%. When we have senior night, inevitably, someone will say what a profound impact that he has had on their lives, made a difference. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Johnson's amazing.
He really is. Coach Johnson is great. And you can go back and listen to the interview I did with Coach Johnson not too long ago. Ms. Brandel, I got one more question for you. I've asked all the athletic directors today. I want to ask you the same thing. Obviously, huge rivalry between Flagstaff and Coconino. Since taking over in 2007, what does that rivalry mean to you?
We always laugh. It's just a great game. You can count on it. And, one team could be at the top and one team can be at the bottom of all the bracketing. And that game, you would never know because we always play our best. Yeah. And I think it's a fun rivalry. I enjoy it. Coconino has some great coaches. I can't say enough about Coach Moran, just a solid, top-notch guy. And I have a great deal of respect for Eric Freeze, their athletic director. So it's always fun.
Yes, it is always fun. And we're looking forward to continuing that fun in the winter season into the spring season. Ms. Brandel, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was great getting a chance to speak with you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more sports on the other side. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. Want to welcome you back here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. I'd like to thank all my guests for coming on the show this week. I'd like to thank you for watching along each and every week. As we know, the winter sports season has been reinstated to start on January 18th, and we cannot wait to continue our coverage of the winter season, and hopefully it will translate into a very successful spring season. But there's only one way to find out, and it is to continue covering 4A Grand Canyon sports right here on Off the Bench. For all my guests, I'm Philip Catalfamo, wishing you a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.